this is part 2 of the history of Unit 2345. So the first video talked about what bus was actually used in the movie The Graduate. In this video I'm going to talk about what bus is this. More specifically, just the history of this bus. And in the third part to follow, I'm going to talk a little bit about does that make this bus the bus that was used in the movie The Graduate. So the model number for this 1956 bus is TDH-4512. So the T stands for transit, or that it's a transit bus. The other option here would be S for a suburban bus, something that would have been more of a long-haul highway coach. The D stands for diesel, and that it has a diesel engine. The H is for hydraulic, for a hydraulic shifted transmission. The other option there would be a M for manual shift, so this is an automatic transmission. So the 45 stands for the maximum seating that this bus could be configured for. The purchaser of the bus could probably configure it in multiple different ways, but the maximum seats that could be put in this bus would be 45. So the 12 stands for the 12th model in this series. So of the TDH 4500, this is the 12th one that GM put together. I'm not sure if there was 11 previous models in this series, but at least this was the 12th model designated by GM in the TDH 4500 series. So this bus is 35 feet long and 96 inches wide, or 8 feet. So as I talked about in the first video of this series, this bus came from the Santa Monica Municipal Bus Lines in California. Its original unit number at Santa Monica was 4522. So this photo of Unit 4522 was taken in 1956, so this probably wasn't long after it was delivered to Santa Monica. And I was able to find on eBay this photo of Unit 4522 in color. So it's a nice photo of it, and it's Santa Monica blue. I'm guessing that this photo was taken at the bus garage for Santa Monica. And here's an illustration I did for the bus as it was painted at Santa Monica. So it's this light blue top with a darker blue bottom. The side of the bus says Santa Monica Municipal Bus Lines and the unit number 4522. So when Kent State bought the bus, they titled it in the state of Ohio. This is the title of the bus when I got it from Kent, so right before I transferred it to myself. So it's a 1956 GMC bus, model TDH-4512, serial 1674, and again, previously owned by the city of Santa Monica. So they arrived at Kent in the early part of August, I believe. The final transfer of the title took place here August 23rd, 1967. The unit number assigned to this bus when it arrived at Kent State was 2345. So under the Kent State numbering system, the 2000 series was the second fleet of buses purchased by Kent. The 1000 series was a group of buses bought from Jamaica, New York. The Green Bus Lines Company was the previous owner of those. So this being number 23 would be the third bus in this order. So the third bus of the buses purchased from Santa Monica. So Kent State finished all of their unit numbers with the seating in the bus. So this unit number 2345 means that it has seating for 45 people. I talked to a driver that drove this bus back from California, and he wasn't 100% sure if this paint job was applied prior to them taking delivery of it. His memory, he felt, was more that it had been painted prior to Kent State taking delivery. And once the bus arrived at Kent, the unit number would have been applied. So Kent State Livery, when they started their bus service in 1967, was an overall silver bus with a blue upper portion and yellow stripes on the top and the bottom. So one thing that changed with the bus once Kent State bought it was an addition of a vent over the front of the bus. So as you can see here in Santa Monica, there's nothing over the destination sign. But this photo of Unit 2245, which is one of the other Santa Monica buses, there is a vent over the destination sign. The actual purpose of that inlet on the top of the bus would have been for a thermomatic system This was an option that GM offered that provided heating and ventilation to the inside of the bus. So air would enter into that roof inlet and feed a heater that would then distribute a heated air throughout the bus. Or if heat wasn't needed, just a blower that would blow the air throughout the bus to cool down on the inside. So since this roof intake was added after it came to Kent, it serves none of those purposes. So if you could look through this mesh here, despite my best efforts to show it, you would just see that it's just the roof of the bus. There's no opening for air to go into some sort of heating unit. So I'm not 100% sure why this was added. I did find a reference to it in some early documentation, and it kind of led me to believe that the only reason why this was added was to put these 3 marker lights on the top of the bus. So there may have been some Ohio law requiring marker lights on the top of the bus, so the workaround was to add this vent housing, intake housing, and then they could have just added the lights to meet that requirement. So the lack of cold temperatures in California didn't require Santa Monica to purchase the thermomatic system. But what they did opt for is a roof vent system. So you can see here on the roof of the bus there are these 6 blisters. And these 6 blisters are vents for the inside of the bus. So as the slipstream of air moves over the top of the bus, basically it creates a vacuum similar to blowing across the top of a soda straw and having the liquid rise. So the same thing would happen here. As the air moved across the top of the bus, it would create a low pressure, and if the vent was open, it would pull out the hot air from inside the bus. So inside the bus, there are 6 matching vents that can be opened and allow for the air to be sucked outside as the bus is moving down the road. So here's a little shot at the roof of the bus to kind of get a close-up of what those blisters look like. So you can see the gap between this blister and the roof of the bus. It's pretty small. I've never actually stood under them while the bus has been going down the road. I'm not 100% sure if it's something that you feel or how effective these actually are. But it's kind of a trademark of the Santa Monica buses. So it's one way to identify, at least in the Kent State fleet, any of the buses that came from Santa Monica. So Kent State operated this bus in this livery for about the first 15 years or so. And then by the mid-1980s, the bus was given a new paint job to mark its involvement in the Graduate movie. By that time, all of the other old-look buses had been retired from the Kent State fleet, and they had made the decision to keep this one only because of its involvement in the movie. So it was retired from routine service on the Kent State routes and relegated to use in special occasions. So when I took delivery of the bus in 2003, this is the livery that the bus had on it. To make it ready for private ownership, the campus bus service painted over all of the Kent State University and campus bus service lettering. So another feature of this bus is the water bumper. So the bumper consists of 5 blisters on the front that are filled with water, and on top of each of those are these little plugs. So they're meant to withstand a 5-mile-an-hour or less impact without damaging the vehicle. So if the bus would to come in contact with something, the plugs would then kind of pop out, and then the water would be ejected vertically in a kind of a dramatic fashion after the accident or as a result of the accident. So the water bumpers were made by Rich's Soft Cushion Bumper Company of Sacramento, California. And experiments were done at Brigham Young University that concluded the bumpers would reduce impact by 30 to 50%. So in order to ensure that the water wouldn't freeze in the winter, then antifreeze would be added to each of the bumpers just to make sure that they would still be liquid should an accident happen in the winter months. So when Kent State retrofitted their fleet with these water bumpers, they became the largest operator east of California to be using them. So the inside of the bus as it stands now is pretty barren. There's quite a few seats that are missing from the inside of the bus. When Unit 2345 was used primarily for a PR operation, they removed the seats so they could put inside like a table or something like that and then use the bus as kind of a mobile office, if you will. I think they did student registration for events or something like that. So unfortunately, that means that those seats are lost to time. I have no idea. I'm sure they just threw them out in a dumpster. And ultimately, I'd like to have those seats replaced. So thankfully, I was able to find years ago a sister coach of this, Unit 2445. And this bus happened to have all of the seats, or at least most of the seats, that I'm missing. The frames were not salvageable. They were basically rusted through. But I was able to get all the seat bottoms and the seat back cushions from this bus. So ultimately, Unit 2345 will have original Santa Monica seats inside. So the old look buses kind of have these neat old lights that run down each side of the bus. Some of the lights up front can be turned off by the driver at night to limit the amount of glare that he gets from all of the lights in the back. But overall, it's a pretty nice lighting system for the inside. And then at the back of the bus, there's these spotlights that shine down on the back seat on both sides of the bus. So on the left side of the bus is an emergency door. It has a simple handle that you lift, and it allows the door to swing out, and then people could evacuate out that side of the bus. I'm sure this is for in case the bus rolled over on the side that has the doors on it, there would still be a way to get out of the bus. So over the rear door, if you open up the compartment that shows the door engine, inside you can still see some of the original Santa Monica interior paint. So it's this kind of pinkish tan that you can see inside of this screenshot from the movie. And here's the stop request chime. So the exterior of the bus has seen some wear and tear. It's actually not too bad a condition physically. The paint has faded quite a bit from sitting out in the sun for years. Most of the paint that was applied by the campus bus service when I bought it to hide the lettering has faded enough now that you can actually start seeing some of that lettering come through. And again, part of the livery to mark its participation in the movie, they wrote starring in the movie The Graduate on the side. And it's faded quite a bit, but that livery to mark its participation in the movie, you can see here, well, barely. It says starred in the movie The Graduate. So looking through old university newspapers, it seemed to be every few years there'd be another article about the Kent State ownership of the bus from the movie The Graduate. I find it a little funny that every time it's put in print, they make it sound like this was the moment of discovery. There were articles even into the late 80s or early 90s that still announced the discovery of this bus being used in the movie. So a few pieces on the front of the bus got loose, so rather than accidentally lose them while I'm driving down the road, I opted to remove them. And that shows off some of the Santa Monica blue that's still behind the Kent State white paint here. And the bus still has its original 1967 destination sign on the bus. So those that are familiar with the routes would recognize the Campus Loop, the Stadium Loop, West Main via Plaza. And I'm not sure that some of these destination signs would have ever been used by this bus. Given that this bus is governed to about 45 miles an hour, I don't think that this bus was sent to Cleveland, but I could be wrong. So this is Unit 2345, originally owned by Santa Monica as Unit 4512. It came to Kent State in 1967 when they launched their own bus service, the campus bus service. And in 2003, I purchased it when the campus bus service went out of business, and I've owned it ever since. So the third part of this series, I'm going to discuss whether or not this bus was actually used in the movie The Graduate. Stay tuned.